Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's show. On satellite imagery, system moving across the Gulf of Alaska really doesn't show up that great on this imagery here, but the front having moved inland, another trough bringing more showers into the southeast coast today, and otherwise moisture exiting Kodiak Island and shifting up into south central Alaska, mostly in the form of clouds, a few flurries, and then a more extensive area of snow up here from the northern Susitna Valley, roughly on up into the Fairbanks area and on off to the northeast all the way to the eastern Arctic coast. Skies clearing out back here to the west and temperatures well below zero, especially up here over the northwest interior. And again, skies clearing there over Bristol Bay, a low pressure center there south of the Pribilofs, bringing rain and snow, which appeared to change over to mostly snow this afternoon at St. Paul. And that front bringing a little bit of moisture, really not much to it at all, especially compared to the storm from yesterday, and then scattered snow showers back out to the west. On the chart today, here's that front that pushed across the southeast coast earlier and brought about an inch of rain in the last 24 hours to Yakutat, Sitka, about a half an inch. And then down at Craig, they picked up nearly an inch of rain too. Break right through here, and then a trough just off the coast there, so showers poised to move back on in this evening. Otherwise, maybe a few flurries up around the Wrangell Mountain areas there, but Prince William Sound, pretty good. Higher mid and high level clouds, and that's about it. Look like a few flurries, areas of light snow develop over the Kenai Peninsula today, extending up a few flurries around Anchorage, up in toward Palmer. And then that gets, as I mentioned, more extensive as you head toward the Alaska Range, and then light snow up across the interior there in the turquoise shaded area. Amounts half inch to maybe an inch, give or take, here across the Tanana Valley on up to the northeast there, with just flurries and fog along the Arctic coast. Light winds, clear skies, cold temperatures back to the northwest here. And this area, again, a light snow really there just because of the open water and the cold Arctic air flowing in over it. So that bringing some surges of fog and flurries through the Bering Strait down to St. Lawrence Island. High pressure starting to develop here, and clearing skies, of course, colder temperatures. And then this system out to the west, again, just kind of a mixture of rain or snow depending on where you are or your elevation over the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. About a third of an inch of rain fell at Unalaska with that thing, and 3/4 of an inch at Falls Pass, and then scattering out to snow showers back to the west. Tonight that system pulls up into the northeast, so it looks like mostly snow, wet snow for the Pribilof Islands tonight, and this front will push rain or snow, probably mostly snow here, whatever reaches Togiak to maybe Dillingham, kind of iffy. You're going to be right on the edge for king salmon. Better chance down the coastline though, but pretty narrow band here across the Alaska Peninsula. Snow showers, lower freezing levels rotating in across the eastern Aleutians and extending back up to that 1,003 millibar low. High pressure, cold temperatures tonight here over the western interior. Skies clearing from west to east. and the snow gradually pushing off to the east as well. So areas of snow over the Copper River Basin, maybe down to the North Gulf Coast, probably more of a mixed condition there, Cordova to Yakutat, and still a trough kind of hanging right along the coastline for tonight. So the interior areas down there won't see a whole lot of precipitation. And then for tomorrow, this system keeps it pretty unsettled there for the Alaska Peninsula, but we'll provide some gale force northwest winds here across the Fox Island areas. Lighter winds though, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay. Out of the northeast, maybe small craft advisories. High pressure, mostly clear skies in the interior. Again, clearing out here down across the Susitna Valley into northern Cook Inlet. Scattered snow showers, mostly on the Shelikof Strait side of the Kodiak Island zone on up into Kamishak Bay. Snow showers possible along the North Gulf Coast, otherwise dry, and that trough finally kicking through the southeast coast. Looks for some clearing there, especially from Sitka on down across Prince of Wales Island by midday and into the afternoon. This area of snow just about all the way out of the state by tomorrow afternoon. And back to the west, the next system already picking the winds up. It doesn't look like the gales will move into the western Aleutians until tomorrow evening. And then this storm here takes a turn to the northeast and develops into quite a system down to 971 millibars and a really nice gradient here across the Copper River Basin, southeast interior, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet areas, and along this front, or in advance of that, storm force winds both along the coast and over the Clarence Strait area there. Looks like storm force winds southeast 50 knots there with gales through the central inside water areas, and then also some pretty good winds. Looks like gales for the North Gulf Coast. Otherwise, mostly clear here over south central Alaska. Winds on the increase, especially through the channeled areas. And then this area of moisture, first coming northward, begins to pull westward. It may not reach as far west as I've got it drawn here, but definitely the eastern areas there, the Copper River Basin, all the way up to Northway, maybe Eagle. Looks like a pretty good chance of snow on Tuesday. Otherwise clear and cold in the interior, picking up the clouds and that snow, light snow, mostly off the coast there, just catching Cape Lidsbarn and through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island. This front driving eastward there, the low center hanging back toward Amchitka. So looks like some easterly gales for the Pribilofs and at least small craft advisories there for the Alaska Peninsula with rain pushing across Nikolsky and Unalaska. Cold air, snow or snow showers back to the west there from Adak on out to Shimia. Temperatures this afternoon across the southeast coast shaped up like this, lower 40s. Out along the coast, mid to upper 30s over the inland areas. It's a 36 at Juneau, Klawock 43, 33 both at Valdez, almost at Seward, and Cordova, 3 degrees at McCarthy, 6 Gulkana, 0 at Northway, -2 Delta, 1 above Fairbanks, light snow, 20s here, Susitna Valley to lower 30s down across the Kenai Peninsula there, 32 at Homer, 34 Seward, same thing at Kodiak, and up to the north with the skies clear, temperatures considerably colder there, ranging from -2 at Fort Yukon to 22 below there at Bettles, -27 at Ambler, and getting a little above 0 here out along the coast, but Selawik much colder, staying well below 0 throughout the afternoon, but daring up to 5, -18 at Etersuk, otherwise -2 at Dead Horse, -7 Point Lay. Single numbers here across the Seward Peninsula, -6 at, let's see, that was at Marshall, and -5 at Bethel. Otherwise, we had 12 degrees there at Amonic, 22 for Gamble, mid-30s for the Pribilofs, 13 there in King Salmon, warmed to near 40 here for the Alaska Peninsula, 43 though at Sand Point, otherwise upper 30s for the Aleutians and Pribilofs. Lows for tonight, upper 20s for St. Paul, St. George, to near 20 there St. Lawrence Island, 30s here Alaska Peninsula, lower 30s on out towards Shimia, and upper 20s Kodiak, and then notably cooler there, especially west and northwest of the Aleutian Range, falling to -20 for McGrath, 25 to 35 below here from the Koyukuk Valley in across the north slope in the Brooks Range, 30s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow, upper 30s, lower 40s here for the southeast coast. 20s, Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula cooling into the teens. The Sitna Valley even colder, the Copper River Basin. Mid-minus 20s there over the north central interior with -2 just about all the way out to the coastline. Lower 20s, St. Lawrence Island, 30s near 40 for the Aleutians. Flying weather tomorrow, IFR along and north of the Brooks Range and also the western Arctic coast. Marginal VFR down across St. Lawrence Island, areas of the Bering Sea, and also along the southeast coast. Tomorrow afternoon, this area continues to diminish and looks like pretty good VFR breaking out for the Panhandle North Gulf Coast. Possible marginal VFR there over central and southern Cook Inlet to Kodiak Island, back to the west, up to the north to St. Lawrence Island. Hang on to some IFR there on the north side of the Brooks Range in the western Arctic coast. Passes Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, as well as rainy VFR, windy VFR. Mentasta, Isabel looking really good. And Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR. And Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, not much to see here. Just a shade north of the Pribilofs, possibly tonight, late tonight, early tomorrow morning, up along the North Gulf Coast, 2,000 feet there, probably as far north as Elfin Cove. Icing, again, this area, this batch shifting eastward throughout the day tomorrow, kind of a mixed condition here over the southeast coast. And again, that leaving the eastern interior, and then some icing chances here from Kamishak Bay across Bristol Bay on down to the Alaska Peninsula. Mostly above 3,000 feet, but nothing really significant. And this area out here poised to slide northeastward into mostly the central Aleutians tomorrow night. And upper level wind flow chart, we've got cold upper level low up here over the Arctic there, and the cold air coming around like that, southwest up to 50 knots there through the northeast interior to the eastern Arctic coast. Jet stream nudging northward here over the Aleutians, but mostly everything moving east to west. And at 9,000 feet, low pressure, light winds over the eastern interior, right down into Prince William Sound. And pretty light variable wind condition here from Cook Inlet down into the southwest interior, but northeast 35 knots, swinging around to the northwest here in across the eastern Aleutians. Lighter, more variable, turning southeast and then picking up in the afternoon for the far western Aleutians. Mostly west or west-southwest here, 20 to 25, in across the southeast coast. Same pattern at 3,000 feet, but 15 to 20 knot winds at this level. Light variable winds, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, through much of the central and eastern interior to the Arctic coast, and then kind of a narrow band of strong winds around this low here near the Alaska Peninsula. Northeast 35 to 40, northerlies to northwest 35 knots across the eastern Aleutians. Light winds for Kodiak Island, and again the winds picking up way out there to the west. Turbulence-wise, smooth through much of the interior down to the Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island. Mechanical chop here below about 5,000 feet of the moderate variety in the turquoise area. Same thing from False Pass over to the eastern Aleutians, and a break and more turbulence just making the scene there for the far western Aleutians. Smooth across the southeast coast. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Be charged. You, Jane.
No. You're John King, and I'm Martha King. And today we're going to talk about a subject that will change the way you look at weather. Well, at least the way you look at weather reports and forecasts anyway.
In North America, we've used the old familiar SAs and FTs for the past 40 years. But since 1968, the rest of the world has been using the METAR-TAF format. Now, METAR officially stands for Aviation Routine Weather Report, and TAF stands for Terminal Aerodrome Forecast. Now, METAR and TAF are the worldwide standard for all aviation weather reports and forecasts in this shrinking world.
This new code and format is not a great deal different from what you're used to. And in some ways, it will make reading and interpreting the weather much quicker and easier than it's been in the past. You'll find that in many cases, particularly in the forecasts or TAFs, you'll have more weather information available to you.
Learning to read this code is not only helpful in reading METARs and TAFs, but you'll also be able to read the same code when it's used in area forecast, airmets, SIGMETs, pilot reports, and other sources of weather information.
Learning this code will ensure that you can read weather reports and forecasts from computer terminals at your local airport. And you'll also be able to read those formerly mysterious military weather reports. In many cases, military reports will give you a weather forecast for an airport much closer to your home airport.
And here's the best news. We're going to make all this easy to learn and give you neat ways of remembering the codes.
But now, let's join John as he gets started with the new codes and orders.
Let's begin with the METAR. Now remember, that officially stands for Aviation Routine Weather Report, but you can think of it as Meteorological Aviation Routine because that'll make it easy to remember. The METAR coding is also the basis for the coding used in the Terminal Aerodrome Forecast, or TAFs, the area forecast, and SIGMETs and airmets. So this coding is going to be very useful for you and well worth learning. Now in METAR, the order after the identifier and the date and the time is like this. It's a report modifier. You can think of that as who. We'll talk more about that later on. The wind, the visibility, the RVR where it's available, the present weather, the sky condition, the temperature and dew point, the altimeter setting, and remarks. Now let's look at each individual item and find a fun and easy way to remember the sequence and also to identify the separate items in the report. So let's take a look at them in the New World Order.
If you get your weather off of Duat or get hard copy printout from the flight service station, this is what you're probably going to see. The METAR, our Aviation Routine Weather Report, the hourly routine observation. Occasionally, however, you might see a SPECI. SPECI stands for a special observation. The weather met some kind of criteria that had them put out a special observation. But METAR and SPECI will be the lead element of the report, depending on whether it's the hourly routine observation, that's what you'll see most of the time, or whether it's a special observation or SPECI. Let's work our way now through a METAR report and see what it tells us. The type of report is what you're going to see first, which normally, as we said, is going to be METAR. Occasionally, however, what you will see there instead of METAR is SPECI. And notice that when it's a special observation, it is not, you're not going to see the normal hourly time that the routine report is taken at. It's going to be some kind of oddball time, in this case 2035 Zulu. Rarely, you might see one other type of report where it might say Test M. And what that is a test observation reported from an ASOS station that is not yet commissioned. Now, we take a look and we determine whether it's a routine or a special observation. The next thing that we want to look for is the 4 W's. The 4 W's are where, when, who, and when. Let's take a look at the where first of all. Where was this observation taken? And of course what that's going to be is the station identifier, in this case KDCA. In this case the weather is for KDCA, which is Washington National Airport in Washington, D.C. Suppose we'll find a lot of fog around there and foggy bottom? Maybe just some foggy thinking. Now, you'll notice that the station identifiers in the METAR reports are 4-letter rather than 3-character identifiers. KDCA, 4 letters. Only letters are used, no numbers at all. And the reason for that is it's been done to conform to the ICAO standard for airport identifiers. But if you take a look and you take the first letter of the station identifier away, take away the K here, what you'll come up with in most cases is the old familiar airport identifier that we've been used to seeing. Now, all the airports in the 48 contiguous states, those are the ones that are all stuck together in North America, begin with the letter K, followed by the three-letter identifier for the airport. DCA is the identifier we're all familiar with for Washington National, but you tack a K on the front of it, makes it KDCA, and that's an ICAO identifier. That's fine for the 48 contiguous states. What about Alaska? Alaskan airports all begin with PA for Pacific Alaskan. Let's take a look at Fairbanks. The identifier for Fairbanks is FAI. But remember, we're going to have a four-letter identifier, and it's going to start with PA. So the identifier for Fairbanks International becomes PAFA. PA for Pacific Alaskan, and then the first two letters of the regular airport identifier, in this case FA. How about Hawaii? Well, Hawaiian airports begin with PH for Pacific Hawaiian. Let's take a look at Maui, at Kahului, Maui. The identifier for that is OGG, but we're going to take the first two letters of that and tack it on to the end of the PH. So what we get is PH for Pacific Hawaiian, and then OG, the first two letters of the OGG regular identifier. In Canada, the Canadian airports will all begin with CU, CW, CZ, or CY. The second W is when. When was the observation taken? That's always important to a pilot. So let's take a look at our METAR and figure out the when on that observation. The date and the time of observation are a 6-digit field plus the letter Z. Now the first two digits are the date, 11, the 11th day of the month. Now remember, this is a UTC day. It starts at midnight in Greenwich, England. The last four digits, 1955, are the time in Zulu that the observation was taken. The letter Z is on there to remind us that all observation and report times are in coordinated universal time. This particular weather observation was taken on the 11th day of the month at 1955 Zulu. If you want to find the time of the observation quickly, just zip right to the Z.
Welcome back. There's still a pretty good open area here over the Chukchi Sea, but building along the western Arctic coast, Stephen Norton Sound here filling in pretty good. Ice out to Nunivak Island in across Kuskokwim Bay, and the far reaches of northern Cook Inlet there's some ultra thin stuff. So moving on to marine forecast, small craft advisories. Northern Canal tomorrow afternoon dropping off to 20 Stevens Passage, becoming light and variable there for Clarence Strait. West 20 to 25 on the south coast, southwest 15 to 25 up to the north. Big, again, that strong front coming in, so storm force winds all along the coastline, southeast 50 to 55 knots, seas up to 25 feet. Storms coming into Clarence Strait as well out of the southeast, full gales there for Stevens Passage, and southeast 30 for Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, light winds, mostly out of the north. Could be some higher gusts there in some areas, but nothing significant. 15, northeast 15, Cook Inlet. 20 knot northwesterlies pick up to 25 knots for the Barrens. West 20 to 25 for the North Gulf Coast. Pretty light variable winds for Kodiak. Next day, though, I've got northwest 25 here for Chillicothe Strait. Increased to gale force here on the east side of Kodiak Island. Gales, the Barrens to Kamishak Bay. And northeast 45 knots there for the Middleton Island zone, and northeast 30 knots higher gusts for Prince William Sound. Bristol Bay northeast 25 or east northeast, becoming southwest here for the Alaska Peninsula, seas 10 to 12 feet. And then on Tuesday, south to east winds here across the peninsula, still at 25 knots, northeast 25 Bristol Bay, northwest coming down to 20 knots for the area from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Fox Islands tomorrow, northwest 30 to 35, kind of laying down here for the central Aleutians to 20 knots, and starting to pick up tomorrow afternoon there, say from Amchitka westward to Shimia. And then on Tuesday, low center coming up to about this position, northeast 45 knots on the back side, south to southeast 35 to 45 knots there, on the western or the eastern side, and gale force winds across the eastern Aleutians. For the southwest coast, northwest or northeast, 20 to 25 there. Northerlies 30 for the Pribilofs, light winds through St. Lawrence Island. Next day, easterly winds 20 knots, Nunivak Island northward there to St. Lawrence Island. 25 knots, St. Matthew Island, gales pushing into the Pribilofs. And the Arctic coast, west-northwest, 10 to 15 knots here from the central coast to Demarcation Point. Light and variable on the west side. Also, really the whole area here, pretty light and variable tomorrow with slight seas. And then for Tuesday, still pretty light here for the Chukchi Sea, west-northwest 15, southwest 15 for the central coast, and south to southwest, only 10 knots there on the east side. For tonight, again, high pressure clearing skies pushing eastward up to the Alaska Range. Clear for the Kuskokwim Valley, so temperatures below zero, all in this clear area. Right up to the north there, still some low clouds, flurries and fog for the North Slope and Arctic coast. This system brings some snow possibilities into Bristol Bay, a narrow band down across the Alaska Peninsula. Trough rotating some snow showers into the eastern Aleutians, and this low center pushes inland, continues to weaken. Not much of a threat, just showers for the southeast coast. Mixed precipitation here for Yakutat, northern Panhandle, light snow pushing eastward throughout the night tonight. And for tomorrow, that's just about by tomorrow afternoon, this time tomorrow afternoon, it's practically out of the state now. Showers exiting the Panhandles. Looks for some afternoon sun here along the coast there. Snow showers possible there for the North Gulf Coast. Area snow or rain and snow for the Alaska Peninsula, mostly off the coast of Bristol Bay. High pressure, cold temperatures over the interior. And then this storm turns northeastward here, brings the storm force winds in across the southeast coast with good shot of precipitation, while snow moves westward through here, clear and cold in the interior. Next front out west. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Politicians,
Business leaders,
scientists,
authors,
artists,
the people who do know.
the people you should know.
Tonight
on Charlie Rose.
Tonight at 11.
When you pledge, you are also supporting Antiques Roadshow, great performances, Masterpiece, Nature, Nova, educational kids programming, and so much more. If you've yet to become a member, but watch a couple times each week,